When you read the Gospels or read the epistles, when someone cries out in anguish to Christ or to one of the apostles, I don't ever see them turning a blind eye and walking by. There's always a response, there's always an action, there's always an attempt to heal or to restore. As disciples of Jesus, we can do no other thing than to respond.
Water is essential for life, but in the West African country of Togo, it can just as easily bring death. Hand-dug wells are a breeding ground for waterborne diseases, but for 6 months of the year, these shallow wells run dry, and people become even more desperate for water. For generations, the Kabye people of Togo have suffered from the water they drink. And for just as long, they have suffered in fear of evil spirits. They seek protection through sacrifice to their ancestors, but these ancestors often demand more than the Kabye can give.
Chaque année, si tu n'aimes pas tuer un mouton, il faut tuer une chèvre. Toujours, quand tu gagnes l'argent, tu vas aller faire des cérémonies. Tout ça là, des fois la nourriture, ce que tu as pour manger avec ta famille, tu es obligé de faire. Si tu ne le fais pas, tu vas mourir. Il y avait la honte. Parce que si on te dit de faire quelque chose que tu n'as pas fait, tu n'as pas gagné l'argent pour faire, il y a la honte. Il y avait la honte.
Like bitter water, the animistic religion of the Kabye promises life, but brings only death. This is the story of how the Kabye found water that brings life. They call it Limpuelaling, sweet water. The Kabye people broke the hearts of a young, newly married couple in Montgomery, Alabama. Matt and Grace Hangett had never met the Kabye people. They didn't know their names, they didn't know their language, but they broke their hearts all the same. These were people trapped behind thousands of years of religious tradition, living a harsh reality with little hope for change. In 2008, they left everything they knew behind them: family, friends, and the comforts of home, to bring the life-altering, peace-giving gospel of Christ to the Kabye. But their mission would be a greater challenge than they had ever expected.
For the Kabye people, everything around them, their spiritual forces that are impacting them in ways that they can't know, and they a lot of times feel powerless against those. But the way you live your life is to try to make sacrifices to keep good spirits on your side, or good ancestors fighting those unseen fights for you. And so as long as you are doing your part to keep them happy, then they protect you from the bad ones that are around. And so you're kind of always wondering if you've done enough, and you don't want to do more than enough because you need that little bit of resources you have to get by for the day. Togo, when we arrived, was bleak. Well, I guess we thought we could just show up, and if we wore the right clothes or if we spoke the right language, then we would just click in with people, and then people would give up 1,000 years of religious beliefs. Then we realized that we didn't know what we were doing at all. We would come out and we would try to just even meet with churches, and what we saw was kind of a show of respect happening, but we could just look in people's eyes until we weren't engaged at all. You're just sitting under a tree with 30 guys and 15 of them are asleep, and the other 15 are looking at you like, just wrap this up. And I just sat there frustrated and wondered, what on earth am I going to do? Have I just moved myself across the world for a cause that I can have no part in? So either I had to give up and go home, or I had to find a way to reach people.
The Hangans wanted to share the gospel with the Kabye, but first, they had to earn a voice among the people. They needed to show the love of Christ in practical ways before they could ever effectively share the gospel.
I wanted to not only share the gospel with people and transform their lives and give them the peace that I had come to know through Christ, but I could help people in a really concrete way.
We went in and said, if there was one thing that we could help you with physically, not only spiritually, but physically, what would it be? And the first answer was water.
Mon nom c'est Pocho Seu Aye. J'ai resté ici il y a longtemps. J'ai fait 26 ans à Alibi. Avant, la vie d'Alibi, c'était difficile. En ce temps, l'eau était rare et c'était une eau sciée. Il n'y avait pas une eau propre. On vivait comme ça, avec les maladies. Bon, les enfants mouraient, les hommes aussi. C'est par chance que nous, on est vivants jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Même un de mes enfants est mort.
The first water source they had was deplorable. It was a swamp at first, and they dug out a hole, which was just a small swamp. I mean, it was a nasty, algae-filled water hole. Any hole they dug, cattle or goats or chickens or any other animal would come find it and contaminate it instantly. The dirty water just creates a cycle of sickness, of waterborne illnesses, diarrhea, which we don't think of as a big problem, but when you have it constantly, kills people. So children aren't able to develop, they're not able to grow.
The women spent 4 to 6 hours of their day was just getting water. Just imagine putting 6 gallons of water on your head for 6 hours a day, walking a mile or two back and forth.
And when you see that people are dying of something so simple as water, it's hard to imagine walking by and not trying to do something about it. One of the big problems here in Togo is that a drilled borehole or a water well that's drilled with a mechanized rig can often cost $10,000, $15,000, $18,000 here in Togo. And so that price is incredible. I mean, people on a local level can never afford it. So we were looking for manual drilling methods. I began to look online, and I found a freshly made website that came up by a group called Water 4.
Water 4 goes into an area, and we train the locals how to drill water wells on their own. We've come up with a hand pump that can be built in Africa. We've come up with hand drilling tools that we can drill down to 150 foot. With this training that we offer, when we leave behind the tools, and they have a ready-made business. Gives them a job, gives them purpose, and it gives entire regions clean water, all in the same package.
I sent an email and said, here I am in Togo. Would you guys just send me pictures next to a tape measure of this stuff, just so I know how big it is? I got an email back almost instantly. We want to know how we can help you. Tell us about yourself and what you've been doing. And the next thing I knew, I was getting a 4-day flyby Water 4 training in southern Togo.
That's top now. Yeah, that's top. Matt and Grace, they were looking for an amazingly efficient way to get a hole in the ground so they could effectively bring both clean water and the gospel to local communities. And what Matt saw in this approach is something that he could train his drillers to do, and they could train others, and it could keep going. It was a very simple tool, very simple technique, but a very efficient and successful end result. When Matt and Grace and I selected the location in Togo, we had high confidence.
Yeah, I'm excited already, yeah. Maybe.
Everything worked. We were proceeding very, very quickly with the borehole, and that's when the excitement started to go up. Even in the local community, people started coming in with empty jerry cans, knowing that we were going to hit water soon.
There's a lot of energy. Everyone's waiting around, trying to see how this is going to work. Unfortunately, we have to stop and wait for glue to dry for a minute, but it's pretty amazing. You can really feel the community's energy to see water come out of this.
When the water hit the surface, there was so much enthusiasm, so much laughter, and so much excitement. It was just something that is unforgettable. In Matt's mind, he knew that was going to transform the area around where they lived.
We want to form teams of well drillers that can form other teams of well drillers. And as they're doing so, share the love of Christ as they minister to their neighbors.
When the Water 4 group left, they left us the tools and 3 hand pumps and said, see what you can do with these and let us know when you finished.
The Hangans approached the young church in the community of Alibi with the opportunity to bring clean water to their village. The church took up the work enthusiastically, and in less than a month, they completed 6 wells.
One of the most remarkable things to me was that the water wells weren't placed at the homes of members of their church. They'd place these wells next to Muslim homes in their community, next to non-church members' homes in their community. And they told me, oh, we did this because we wanted to show them how much God loved them.
Nous, on va dire que l'eau propre est arrivée à Libye par l'église de la famille de Christ.
Aye comes up and he grabs my hand, he's shaking my hand, he's telling me how happy they are, and he says, we want to change the name of our village to Sweetwater, Limpaweleling in Kavier. He said, this has changed everything for us.
C'est vrai. Poliling, Pum. Parce que vraiment, Dieu est venu comme ça à nous. Oui, vraiment, pour la parole de la bonne nouvelle, là, ce qui m'a touché réellement, quand on nous a dit, quand on nous a enlevé de notre péché, nous on ne savait pas que Dieu nous a pardonné nos péchés. Moi, je tuais les fétiches, il y avait la honte. Et vraiment, moi-même, si des fois ma femme fait, je la bats. Mais aujourd'hui, là, comme j'ai laissé ça, je suis libre.
One of the most profound things I've heard is when people come to Christ, they're not tormented with nightmares anymore. That's one of the most powerful things that people talk about, is that they have peace and they sleep well at night, because these spiritual figures that used to come and torment them in the night no longer have power over them. Their community really was transformed. Not only had Christ transformed their families, but you saw God's will for people to have peace, to have life here on this earth, for the kingdom to come being fulfilled. 5 to 6 kilometers in every direction around the village. All of a sudden I began to hear of these other places where people were getting excited to hear about God and getting excited to have this change of life that Alibi kept talking about.
Quand tu as compris la bonne nouvelle et que tu vois quelqu'un souffrir, toi-même ça te fait mal. Comme tu souffrais là, tu vois quelqu'un qui souffre, tu veux le sauver, il n'a qu'à venir en Jésus-Christ pour être sauvé comme tu es sauvé. Quand en faisant l'eau, on dit que c'est à cause de Jésus que nous on a gagné l'eau. On parle, même jusqu'à faire 2-3 jours, tu vas voir quelqu'un dire que moi je veux comprendre la parole de Dieu, viens chez moi me faire ça.
Clean water and the gospel changed the village of Alibi. The good news began to spread among the Kabylie people, and soon the Hangans began hearing of baptisms in church plants and villages they had never visited.
Water was the access. You know, it was giving the tool of water to people here. That really was the most powerful access. And so handing that over as the access to a community means that Christians can go anywhere and share the gospel.
There are 4 other churches that were planted without us being involved at all, which is amazing.
The greatest moments are when you show up and you're told, oh, you should go meet this other church that's been here for 3 months. Just to be able to get out of the way and let God work through people here, because they're absolutely able to. They're capable of it, and they're more powerful as evangelists than I'll ever be.
Water changes everything. For the Hangans, water means a way into their community. For the church at Alibi, it means an abundant life, both physically and spiritually. For drill teams, it means a vocation to provide for their families. For this moment in history, we have the chance to bring clean water and the living water to the nations. We can be the hands and feet of Christ, meeting both physical and spiritual needs at the same time. Water 4 stands as a unique tool to share the gospel with millions around the world. There are countless villages just like Alibi across this globe, and they're waiting. Will you be the one that brings them sweet water?